holding the Linocutter. The first thing that you want to do is to pick up the Linocutter tool, like so, as if you were riding a bicycle. Then once you have a good firm grasp of the tool, then you are going to turn it forward and place your index finger on this piece right here. Okay, so this is where you will be guiding your linoleum cutter, and your index finger points the way. Okay, so again, you pick up your tool as if you were riding a bicycle, firm grasp, turn it forward, index finger, and this is the right side up for holding the tool. This is not the way you cut. The cutter is upside down. You need to make sure that you are turning it so that the blades are facing upwards. Students, this is a linoleum cutting tool, and inside you twist open the top of the barrel, and you always pour the gouges or the blades that are inside into the palm of your hand over a table surface. So you never just dump them out or open them without catching them in your hand, because these are very, very delicate pieces. And if you drop these on the floor, you can damage the edge of the blades, and that also dulls the blade and it makes it harder for you to cut when you're using these blades. Also, if these blades are dropped onto the floor and they become misshapen, they will not fit into the tool here, and then the Linocutter or the blade is going to be useless. So let's take a look at how we change the lino gouges. So first off, we'll take a look at all of these different blades, and the first thing you'll notice is that all of them have a very round side that is almost identical no matter what the blade is. So I have placed these all facing towards the top. Okay, and as you can see, this is the end that's consistent. So the consistent end, the rounded end, is the end that goes into the tool. So whenever you are changing your blades, you never leave your blades sitting out on the table, because if they get knocked over onto the floor, they may get swept up with the garbage, and these blades or gouges are very expensive to replace. So once you've decided on the gouge you're going to use, you always put the remaining gouges back into the barrel and you close it up. So I have selected the number 1. It's a small V gouge, and there is an etched number 1 that is on the back side or the bottom side of the gouge. So now I'm going to place my blade or my gouge into the cutter tool. So as you can see here, there is a round kind of crescent moon shape here. And that little space there is where the gouge fits right in. So right now I have this as tight as possible. So what you want to do is to loosen up by turning left. You want to loosen up the tool, and until you find that you can put this in and it fits. Now, how do you tell whether the blade is in completely? The blade should never be partway in, because if you start cutting with a blade that's partway in, you risk it flicking out and possibly injuring somebody, injuring yourself or the person who is sitting nearby you. So you always have to make sure that the gouge is pressed all the way down, like so. Okay, This is the proper way to ensure. Sometimes you might have to wiggle the gouge a little bit to make it go down, okay? But once you've got it down to the bottom here, then you can tighten the cutter, and now you're ready to go. All right, now you never loosen up this part of the cutting tool. You never want to take this part of the cutting tool off. So you don't want to unscrew it until it comes off, and there is a reason for this. So inside, there are two very, very small pieces, and these two small pieces are what allow the gouges and the blades, or the blades, to fit into the Linocutter. And these pieces are so small that if one of these pieces were to fall onto the floor, get swept up with the garbage, it renders the entire tool useless. And this is a very expensive tool. So you never want to unscrew this part off of the actual cutter. Okay, you can loosen it as far as you want, but you never want to take it out of its bearings, okay? Students, when it comes to cutting your linoleum, one of the most important pieces of safety equipment is called the bench hook. The bench hook looks like so. There is a ledge that faces upwards, and there is also a ledge that faces downwards. This bench hook is made out of metal. The bench hooks are also made out of wood. So this bottom ledge is meant to hook onto your work surface like so, and hence no matter how hard you push, the bench hook is not going to move. On top of the bench hook is where you place your linoleum. Your linoleum should always be right up against this top ledge of the bench hook. This way, when you are carving, you don't risk any sort of sudden slip or movement, and mistakes can occur when you're cutting your linoleum if your linoleum shifts. So you always have your piece of linoleum right up against the top edge of this bench hook, and you always hold your reminder, your Linocutter with your index finger right here, and you always push forward. So if you ever slip or you're pushing with too much force and you slip and slide, you're only going to injure your bench hook. You're not going to injure anybody else in front of you, or for that matter, yourself. So you need to keep in mind that your hands and your fingers need to always be behind your cutter. They should never be in front. If it's in front of your cutter, you risk the force of pushing through the linoleum and piercing and cutting yourself very, very badly. So to avoid any injuries, your hands are always behind the cutter. You always cut forward, or you can have your arm placed across your work surface and cut forward this way.
But you never ever cut sideways. If you need to cut sideways, what you do is you turn your linoleum. You turn your linoleum, and then you're always cutting, no matter in which direction, you're always cutting forward. Okay, no matter what you're cutting on your piece of linoleum, you always turn it so that your gouge is always facing forward.